Hello everyone, I'm Pradnya Kale from Fergusson College, English Department. Today we shall learn 1.2 on saying please by A.G. Gardner. In this lesson, he emphasizes on importance of being polite and courteous. If we are polite and courteous, how it can sweeten the atmosphere, and if we are not. So before we begin the lesson, first let us go through some icebreakers. On saying please. List the words of courtesy that we use in our daily life, like, for example, thank you, please, sorry, welcome. So, these are the words that we use in our daily life. Now, etiquette and manners are very important for a person to live in the society. Now, which of these is appropriate or inappropriate? Like to receive phone calls while you are in a lecture or a class. Of course, it is very inappropriate. To thank the person who offers you tea or coffee, it is appropriate. To leave the classroom without the teacher's permission, it is inappropriate. To knock before you enter your principal's office, this is appropriate. So we should follow these etiquettes and manners. Now, A.G. Gardner was born at Chelmsford in 1865. He started his literary career as a journalist. His uniqueness lies in his ability to teach the basic truths of life in an easy and amusing manner. He raised the question of morality in everyday life. Now this lesson basically focuses on importance of having good manners and etiquettes. He points out that value of good manners in social life and emphasizes the importance of courtesy and politeness in daily behavior. He shows how polite speech and manner sweeten the atmosphere around and how discourtesy and ill manners spoil or pollute it. Now let us begin the lesson on saying please. The young liftman in a city office who threw a passenger out of his lift the other morning and was fined for the offense was undoubtedly in the wrong. It was a question of please. The complainant entering the lift said top. The liftman demanded top please. And this concession being refused, he not only declined to comply with the instruction but hurled the passenger out of the lift. This, of course, was carrying a comment on manner too far. Discourtesy is not a legal offense and it does not excuse assault and battery. So here what happens, a young liftman enters, a passenger enters and that liftman hurls that passenger out. Why? Because he did not say please, he just said top, and liftman thought that he should say please. इथे काय होतं की लिफ्टमॅनला वाटतं की त्या पॅसेंजरनी मला प्लीज म्हणावं पण तो म्हणत नाही. So what does he do? He hurls that passenger out of the lift. But here the author says that discourtesy is not a legal offense. Like if you think that someone is very rude, you don't have any right to physically assault that person. Assault and battery is what? An attack which includes not only threats but also the actual use of violence. You can't be violent. If you observe that this person is not polite or is not well behaved, you don't have any right to physically hurt that person. If a burglar breaks into my house and I knock him down, the law will acquit me. And if I am physically assaulted, it will permit me to retaliate with reasonable violence. It does this because the burglar and my assailant have broken quite definite commands of the law. But no legal system could attempt to legislate against bad manners or could sanction the use of violence against something which it does not itself recognize as a legally punishable offense. So if some thief comes into my house or if he physically assaults me, I can retaliate that person. जर कोणी चोर येतो आणि मला माझ्यावरती physically assault करतो तर मला right आहे. I can also retaliate. Retaliate means do something bad to someone who has done something bad to you. So I have that right. I can also retaliate. I can also hit that person back if he has physically assaulted me, and the law will protect me. It does this because हे असं का होतं कारण का that burglar and my assailant, they have broken quite commands of the law. So they have broken the quite commands of law, but no legal system could attempt to legislate against bad manners. So here you can't do this. You can't really hurt someone if you think that the person is very rude or he is not well behaved, because that doesn't come under the command of law. And our sympathy with the liftman, we must admit that the law is reasonable. It would never do if we were at liberty to box people's ears because we did not like their behavior or the tone of their voices or the scowl on their face. Now, suppose you don't like somebody's behavior or you think that the person is not striking a proper tone. So, that doesn't mean that you have got the right to hit that person. If you had that liberty to hit that person, imagine what will happen. Every second day, you would be hitting someone or the other. You don't have any right to box people's ears if that person is rude or you think that he is not behaving properly. Our fists would never be idle and the gutters of the city would run with blood all day. I may be as uncivil as I may please, and the law will protect me against violent retaliation. I may be haughty or boorish. Now, haughty means having a high opinion of oneself and often a low opinion of others. And boorish means rude, uncultured. So, आपल्याला जर ती लिबर्टी असेल की आपलं कोणाचं बिहेव नाही आवडलं and if we start punching or hitting that people, every second day we would be hitting someone or the other. So here the author is saying that I may have a high opinion of myself or I may be rude or uncultured. I don't have to pay any penalty. मला कुठलीही पेनल्टी भरायची गरज नाहीये except the penalty of being written down as ill-mannered fellow. The only thing that will happen is that people will consider that I am an ill-mannered fellow. The law does not compel me to say please or to attune my voice to other people's sensibilities any more than it says that I shall not wax my mustache or dye my hair or wear ringlets down my back. It does not recognize laceration of our feelings as a case for compensation. There is no allowance for moral and intellectual damage in these manners. Now here, law cannot compel you or law cannot force you to say please or sorry or thank you. लॉ तुमच्यावर कुठलीही जबरदस्ती करू शकत नाही की तुम्ही प्लीज म्हणलंच पाहिजे, थँक्यू म्हणलंच पाहिजे, or you should strike a proper tone. No, I can behave the way I like. It is my choice whether I want to keep my hair open or I want to tie it. It is completely my choice. So it does not recognize the laceration. Laceration means a cut or tear of our feelings as a case for compensation. Means if somebody has hurt your feelings or if somebody has hurt you and you feel very bad, so law does not consider it as a case for compensation. That person does not owe you anything. आता कोणी तुम्हाला हर्ट केलं असेल तर तो जो व्यक्ती आहे तो तुम्हाला काही कॉम्पन्सेशन ओ करत नाही. There is no allowance for moral and intellectual damages in these matters. This does not mean that the damages are negligible. It is probable that the liftman was much more acutely hurt by what he regarded as a slur upon his social standing than he would have been if he had kick on the shins, for which he could have got a legal redress. Now on the other side, if I'm saying that I can be rude and all and the law will not punish me, but the thing is that the damage that you make, that cannot be avoided or that is not negligible. The damages that you make, you cannot ignore it. They are not negligible. Now here, it is probable that the liftman was much more acutely hurt by what he regarded as a slur upon his social standing. Means he thought that it was his insult. That passenger refused to say please and he thought that he has insulted him. Then he would have been if he had kick on his shins. So had that person kicked on his shins. Now shin is a part of your leg below your knee. So if that passenger had hurt on his shins, he could have got a legal redress. Now what is the meaning of redress? Something that can be fixed. Like if you pay compensation or something and that thing, you will set that thing right. So for that thing, he could have got a legal redress. The pain of a kick, shins, soon passes away, but the pain of a wound to our self-respect or our vanity may poison a whole day. So here, he can forget that somebody has hit on his leg. He can completely forget that pain will pass. But the wound that he has got on his self-respect, it is very difficult to forget about that pain. So he will keep thinking about that pain. He will think that that person has insulted me and he will keep brooding over that incidents again and again. It may poison that, and this may poison his entire day. I can imagine that the lift man denied the relief of throwing the author of his wound out of the lift, brooding over the insult by the hour, and visiting his wife in the evening as the only way of restoring his equilibrium. So, if he had not got that chance to throw that person out of the lift, what would have happened? He would have brooded over that incident and he would have gone home. And that anger, that insult, all those things, he would have taken it out on his wife to restore his equilibrium. Now, equilibrium here means balance, means his state of mind that is not balanced right now. So, to restore that equilibrium, he would have just taken it out on his wife. For there are few things more catching than bad temper and bad manners. When Sir Anthony Absolute bullied Captain Absolute, they later went out and bullied this man, Fag. Whereupon Fag went out downstairs and kicked the page boy. Now here Sir Anthony Absolute. These are the characters from the novel The Rivals, a comedy by Sheridan. Sir Anthony is the father, Captain Jack, absolute father, and Fag is the son's servant. So here what happens? Father, first thing what happens that Sir Anthony Absolute bullies Captain Absolute. And then what happens? He goes out and bullies his man Fag. And Fag, what does he do? He goes out and he kicks the page boy. Page boy means servant. So this chain will continue. If you are angry at someone or if you're not in a good mood, so you pass that bad temper to other people and that chain just goes on continuing. Probably the man who said talk to the lift man was really only getting back on the employer who had not said good morning to him because he himself had been henpecked at breakfast by his wife, to whom the cook had been insolent, that is rude, because the housemaid had answered her back. We infect the world with our ill humors. Bad manners probably do more to poison the stream of the general life than all the crimes in the calendar. Now here, the author explains that why that passenger must have refused to say please. First of all, somebody, his employee, may not have wished him good morning. And why that must have happened? Because he himself had been henpecked at breakfast by his wife. Maybe his wife was very nagging. She must have said something to him. So he was in a bad mood. And why was the wife in the bad mood? Because to whom the cook had been insolent, that is rude. Because the housemaid had answered her back. So this chain continues. एकाचा मूड खराब असेल तर तो दुसऱ्यावरती काढेल, मग तो दुसरा बाहेर जाईल आणि तिसऱ्यावरती काढेल आणि ही चेन कंटिन्यू होईल. So the author is saying that we infect the world with our ill humors. Bad manners probably do more to poison the stream of general life than all crimes in the calendar. आता हे जे bad manners आहेत, they are more harmful than the actual crimes because we infect the world with our bad manners, and which is very dangerous. Calendar here is a calendar of causes arranged for trial in court. For one wife who gets a black eye from an otherwise good-natured husband, there are 100 who live in a life of martyrdom under the shadow of a morose temper. So here there are thousands of women who have to live under the shadow of a morose temper. Why? Because what happens there? Husbands will arrive, they will come home, and if they are in bad mood, they will just take that anger out on them. And this will lead to domestic violence. So they have to live. But all the same, the law cannot become the guardian of our private manners. So here, the author explains that these people, these women have to live in a life of martyrdom. Martyrdom here means torture. त्यांना रोज torture होतं. कारण का काय होतं की, their husbands come and they just take out their anger on them. So they have to constantly live in that morose temper. Morose means unhappy. No decalogue could cover the vast area of offenses, and no court could administer a law which governed our social civilities, our speech, the tilt of our eyebrows, and all our moods and manners. Now, decalogue means the 10 commandments, means it is a set of rules, moral, religious rules which was given to Moses. This is a biblical reference. So, even that decalogue could not cover the vast area of offenses. and there is no court which could administer a law which governed our social civilities. म्हणजे असा कुठलाही कायदा नाहीये की तो असं म्हणू शकतो की हे रूल्स आहेत, तुम्ही असं बिहेव केलं पाहिजे, तुमचं बिहेवियर असं असलं पाहिजे, असं कुठलाही लॉ निघू शकत नाही. बिकॉज द एरिया इज व्हेरी वास्ट. When it comes to our speech, how should we speak, our behavior or our tone, whether we are, raising our eyebrows or not. So all these areas, all these things, it is a very vast area, and it is very difficult to cover this vast area for any law. So that is why law cannot be made regarding this. But though we are bound to endorse a verdict against the lift man, the most people will have a certain sympathy with him. While it is true that there is no law that compels us to say please, there is a social practice much older and much more sacred than any law which enjoins us to be civil. And the first requirement of civility is that we should acknowledge a service. Now here, it is true that law cannot compel us to say please and all, but there is a social practice which is much more older and sacred. एक social practice अशी आहे जी की जुनी आहे आणि जी सेक्रेड आहे कुठल्याही लॉ पेक्षा. अँड दॅट एन्जॉइन्स अस, म्हणजे ती आपल्याला इन्स्ट्रक्ट करते किंवा सांगते. काय सांगते? टू बी सिव्हिल. दॅट सोशल प्रॅक्टिस डिमांड्स अस, आस्क्स अस टू बी सिव्हिल. And in order to be civil, the very first requirement of civility is that we should acknowledge a service. If in order to be civil, first thing we should do is that we should acknowledge a service. Now, whether it is your lift man, auto rickshaw, a cab driver, anyone, whatever services they have provided, it is said that you should acknowledge their service, or be it anyone. Please and thank you are the small change with which we pay our ways as social beings. They are the little courtesies by which we keep the machine of life oiled and running sweetly. So these are just small words like please and thank you. If you use these words, the machine of life will run smoothly. It is like we are providing oiling to it so that that machine will run very sweetly and it will function very properly. So we just have to use these words like please and thank you. They put our intercourse upon the basis of a friendly cooperation and easy give and take instead of on the basis of superiors dictating to inferiors. So intercourse means communication. What should be the base of our communication? आपलं जे कम्युनिकेशन असतं, जे कॉन्व्हर्सेशन असतं, त्याचा बेस कशावरती असला पाहिजे? इट शुड बी अ फ्रेंडली कोऑपरेशन, लाईक इझी गिव्ह अँड टेक. असं नाही की तुम्ही एक सुपिरियर आहे आणि एका इन्फिरियरला तुम्ही फक्त डिक्टेट करताय. आता तुमचा जर सपोज स्टाफ असेल, मे बी युअर ड्रायव्हर, गार्डनर और कुक, मेड, एनीवन. सो इफ यू जस्ट go on demanding or you just go on ordering them, you just command them and you treat them as if they are inferiors. So this is not the right way to behave. It is a very vulgar mind that would wish to command where he can have the service for asking and have it with willingness and good feeling instead of resentment. So if you ask them to do those things politely, they will do it with good feelings and they will put their 100%. But same on the other level, if you just go on commanding them, or you just say that no, you have to do this, and you are very rude with that, so they will do that job fine, but they will do it out of resentment. That is anger. म्हणजे ते काम करायला नाही म्हणणार नाहीत, पण they will do it out of resentment. I should like to feature in this connection, my friend, the polite conductor. By this discriminating title, I do not intend to suggest a rebuke to conductors generally. So here he gives one example of conductor. On the contrary, I am disposed to think that there are few classes of men who come through the ordeal of a very trying calling better than bus conductors do. So here he wants to clear like what he thinks about being polite and courteous by giving one example of a polite conductor. Here and there you will meet an unpleasant specimen who regards the passenger as their natural enemies, as creatures whose chief purpose on the bus is to cheat him, and who can only be kept reasonably honest by a loud voice and an aggressive manner. So here conductors, they regard their passengers as if they are their enemies. आता कसं होतं की कंडक्टर्सना वाटतं की सगळे पॅसेंजर्सचं एकच पर्पज आहे, दॅट इज टू चीट हिम, बिकॉज दे डोंट वॉन्ट टू बाय द तिकीट्स अँड दे वॉन्ट टू चीट द कंडक्टर. सो दे व्यू them as their natural enemies. But this type is rare, rarer than it used to be. I fancy the public owes much to the Underground Railway Company, which also runs the buses, for insisting on a certain standard of civility in its servants and taking care that standard is observed. So here he says that Underground Railway Company, what do? They insist on their staff that all of them should be very polite and courteous. They insist that they should follow, they should have that certain standard of civility in its servants, and they make sure that this standard is observed. In doing this, it not only makes the things pleasant for the traveling public, but performs an important social service. So here both things happen. Like it is good for travelers also, because their journey becomes pleasant as they meet a very polite and very courteous conductors. On the other hand, it also performs an important social service, because if you are very good, polite and well behaved, it will just sweeten the atmosphere. So consider that this is a social service only. Ordeal means difficult or painful experience. It is not therefore with any feeling of unfriendliness to conductors as a class that I pay tribute to a particular member of that class. I first become conscious of his existence one day when I jumped on to a bus and found that I had left home without any money in my pocket. Everyone has had the experience and knows the feeling, the mixed feeling which the discovery arouses. तर इथे तो एक इन्सिडेंट सांगतो की तो एकदा बसमध्ये चढतो आणि त्याच्या लक्षात येतं की त्याच्याकडे पैसे नाहीयेत. सो ही सेज ही इज गिव्हिंग दिस, he is just sharing this experience with us so that he tells us what kind of conductor he was. So he first of all become conscious that he is without any money, and then he feels very bad, he feels very awkward that now what will happen, and you are annoyed because you look like a fool at the best and like a knave, that is dishonest person. कारण का होतं काय की तुम्हाला सगळ्यांना असं वाटतं की तुम्ही एक डिसऑनेस्ट पर्सन आहे आणि तुम्हाला पैसे द्यायचे नाहीयेत, because nobody would believe that you just forgot your wallet at home. You would not be at all surprised if the conductor eyed you coldly as much as to say, yes, I know that stale old trick. So conductor, what would be the response of conductor? Yes, I know that stale old trick. Conductor तुम्हाला म्हणेल की मला माहिती आहे तुमचे जुने एक्सक्यूजेस काय आहेत, की माझ्याकडे पैसे नाही आहेत किंवा मी पैसे घरी विसरलो, असे एक्सक्यूजेस सगळेच देतात कारण कोणालाच तिकीट काढायचं नसतं. नाउ देन ऑफ यू गेट, अँड इवन इफ द कंडक्टर इज अ गुड फेलो and lets you down easily, you are faced with the necessity of going back and the inconvenience perhaps of missing your train or your engagement. Now what will happen? He will say that no, I don't believe you. Now you get down and you have to get down, you have to go back home, you have to take money and you have to catch another bus. So this will cause you inconvenience and it will waste your time. तर ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टींमध्ये काय होईल, एक तर तुमचा वेळ पण जाईल आणि यू विल फील व्हेरी बॅड, तुमचा टाइमही जाईल आणि तुम्हाला असं वाटेल की ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टीची जर मी पैसे आणले असते तर ह्या गोष्टी सगळ्या झाल्या नसत्या. Having searched my pockets in vain, that is, he was unsuccessful, he was not able to do that, for stray coppers, that is coin of low value, and having found I was utterly penniless, I told the conductor with as honest a face as I could assume that I couldn't pay the fare and must go back for money. Oh, you needn't get off. That's all right, said he. All right, said I, but I haven't a copper on me. Oh, I'll book you through. So he tells the conductor that I don't have money, so I will have to get down. But the conductor said that it is all right. But then he says that, but I don't have money. The conductor म्हणतो की ठीक आहे, तुझ्याकडे पैसे जरी नसले तरी पण मी तुला तिकीट देतो. तुला कुठे जायचंय? Where do you want to go? And he handled his bundle of tickets with the air of a man who was prepared to give me a ticket for anywhere from the bank to Hong Kong. I said it was very kind of him and told him where I wanted to go. And as he gave me the ticket, I said, but where shall I send the fare? So once he gave me the ticket, I just asked him, where shall I send the fare? आता तू मला ticket दिले तर त्याचे पैसे मी कुठे पाठवू? Oh, you will see me someday, all right? He said cheerfully. He turned to go, and then luckily, my fingers, still wandering in the corner of my pockets, lighted on a shilling, and the account was squared. So he said that, all right, I will just book you. I will give you the ticket. You will see me someday. कुठेतरी आपली भेट होईल त्यावेळेस तू मला ते पैसे देऊ शकतो. And then he just left. He just turned to go. And then luckily काय होतं की त्याला पैसे सापडतात. And then that account was squared. Squared म्हणजे settled. तो त्याला पैसे देतो आणि त्याचं अकाउंट सेटल करतो. Now this is very unusual. Don't you think so? Like if you have boarded on a bus and if conductor tells you that it is all right. तुझ्याकडे पैसे नसतील तरी पण ठीक आहे. तू कधीतरी भेटशील तेव्हा पैसे दे. This is very rare and unusual. Now wouldn't you feel happy if you encounter such people? Of course, yes, you would feel happy and it will just cheer you up. It will just make your day if you encounter such people. But that fact did not lessen the glow of a pleasure which so good-natured an action had given me. A few days after my most sensitive toe was trampled on rather heavily as I sat reading on the top of a bus. So he says that the glow of a pleasure that could not leave me. I felt so happy that it just made my entire day. And after a few days, what happened? My most sensitive toe was trampled on. Now trampled on means crushed under feet. तर कोणीतरी त्याचा पाय असं तुडवलेला असतो. And that his toe was rather hurt. As I sat reading on the top of a bus, I looked up with some anger and more agony and saw my friend of a cheerful countenance. So when he looked up, he saw that this person has a very cheerful countenance. Countenance means appearance. Like he looked very happy and he had a very pleasant personality. He said, sorry, sir, he said. I know these are heavy boots. Got them because my own feet get trod on so much that now I'm treading on other people's. Hope I didn't hurt you, sir. So he says that I'm extremely sorry. I know that these boots are very heavy. हे मी स्वतः का घेतले कारण बऱ्याचदा काय होतं की माझ्या पायावरती पाय देऊन लोक जातात त्याच्यामुळे मी असे बूट्स घेतले. So he had hurt me, but he was so nice about it that I assured him that he hadn't. After this, I began to observe him whenever I boarded this bus and found a curious pleasure in that constant good nature of his bearing. He seemed to have an inexhaustible fund of patience and a gift for making his passengers comfortable. Now, remaining part, we shall see it next time. So in this way, we have finished half lesson where he argues that discourtesy is not a legal offense, but you cannot neglect the damages that we make by being discourteous and impolite. The remaining part we shall see in our next lecture. Thank you.